One of the things that I've been fighting for consistent is that we have a responsibility to make sure we fulfill our promise to our veterans. And that includes that they have housing. That's the basic need that we should be providing to them.
Boy, I'm telling you, we've got to get this out of politics. Every day, over 20,000 people are served by the 988 Behavioral Health Crisis Line. These are folks who are experiencing suicidality, reaching out for help. Of that 20,000, over 2,000 are vets, so that's over 140,000 people a week. Turning that off would leave that 140,000 people every week, our friends, our neighbors, our loved ones, stranded. We can't do it. We got to get it out of politics.
So all over the country, people do the point in time count, and they collect the data sort of region-wide and sort of analyze what they have, and then they use that to analyze kind of at the local level, how do we respond to this? Where do we move people? Where do people have needs? What neighborhoods are most affected? And then at the state and at the federal level to sort of tell us how much money this community needs because of the quantity of folks who are on the streets.
And it is important for us to get to the bottom of whether that had any impact on what happened in the control tower that night and whether that had anything to do with the crash. I don't know the answer to that question, but I know that those things are true. And what I know is not true is that DEI and efforts to hire women or black people or Latinos at the FAA had anything to do with that crash.
I think over the next coming weeks and days and months, I'm hoping we get to the bottom of that. I think it's okay to increase air traffic, but you need to make sure staffing levels are appropriate.
Yeah, as a pilot yourself and who's flown helicopters, how concerning is it when you hear that there was so much understaffing at this tower that sees a lot of traffic with airplanes and with helicopters?
You know, I'm not one to just jump down a pilot deviation or a pilot error or an air traffic control mistake. I mean, I think, and I've flown in controlled airspace, never in DCA airspace, because like you just said, it is a very busy environment. But they're incredibly talented at what they do. They are calm, cool, collected individuals. But when you also have an incursion just 24 hours before and you need to divert an airliner around because of a possible helicopter traffic situation, and you know where the helicopter was flying, it was on the Route 1 chart, which traditionally you navigate around those busy airspaces. But Washington, D.C. presents a whole new litany of challenges with national security risks, with the monuments and all of the various different agencies. So perhaps when you're using Route 3, the runway 33 and the approach, maybe we consider a different helicopter route to eliminate any of these deviations.
Yeah, you make a good point. And we know that Secretary Duffy took the oath just a few hours before this happened. You know, what a big first day on the job. What have you seen from him that looks promising in these last 48 hours?
I think what the biggest takeaway is the accountability, that he fully acknowledged that this needs to be resolved. The American people deserve answers. And instead of trying to pass the buck, I think we need to get to the root cause of ultimately what went wrong here and making sure it never happens again.
What do you think?
Yeah, so as we've heard, this is a nighttime flight. It sounds like the Black Hawk helicopter air crew was equipped with night vision goggles. The limitation for night vision goggles is while they're very, very good at amplifying the light, they give you an incredibly small field of view. Your normal field of view top to bottom is about 130 degrees. Your field of view left to right, including your peripheral vision, is about 200 degrees. When you're looking through the standard issue night vision goggles that most helicopter air crews are issued, that's a 40-degree field of view. And you also lose a lot of depth perception when you're looking through them.
I also would just like to point out that several years ago when I was working in this press shop and President Trump would take to this podium to brief the American people on COVID-19, he suggested that COVID very well may have came from a lab in Wuhan, China. And many members in this very room mocked him for that, said he was spewing conspiracy theories. He was not. We now know that to be the confirmable truth.
What happened to let's reduce prices, let's end the Ukrainian war in one day, let's get, some of these other things done that he said would be so easy to do, get the price of eggs down, get gasoline prices down. So he's a master of distraction to get you all, everybody takes the bait, gets all excited, talking about these things, and he's really doing 10 other things off to the side.
The president will be implementing tomorrow a 25% tariffs on Mexico, 25% tariffs on Canada, and a 10% tariff on China for the illegal fentanyl that they have sourced and allowed to distribute into our country, which has killed tens of millions of Americans.
All right.
You're coming out of session. Talk to me. What happened?
Well, of course, we had President Trump in the other night, laid out the vision, laid out the plan, talked about unity, talked about all the great things, frankly, we're going to do. I mean, you know what they are, from our national security to energy to our economy to world stability. I mean, it's taking place as we speak. So we were inside working on primarily the reconciliation and the plan to get us to reconciliation. And going over the detail of what needs to be done to execute President Trump's America First agenda. And we're determined to do it. We have to do it. We received, call it a mandate, call it the will of the people. I mean, clearly, this is what America voted for. This is what America wants. And you know what? This is what America needs.
What have you learned from them?
Well, data is starting to flow in, but it's most important to give the NTSB the time to do the investigation. Ultimately, the NTSB will find the facts that right now people can have conjecture about, but so important to let them get that information, because ultimately the facts will lead us to the changes we need to see.
This is your tweet. That's your whole statement.
Well,
you won't stand behind your own statements made in tweets, countless of them. As a matter of fact, as you put it to Steve Bannon on his show, then we went into a studio and recorded it, mastered it, digitized it, and put it as a song, now releasing it exclusively in the War Room. That was the J6 prison choir song.
And all proceeds were given away to charity to help families.
And you called them political prisoners. Julian Cater, do you know what he did?
I don't know who that is, Senator.
Well, he's one of the J6 prison choir.
You seem to know more about it than I do.
Identified in a court filing. And you're saying now you don't know who he is? You glorified him and the rest of that choir? He's the one who sprayed U.S. Capitol Police Officer Brian Sicknick with pepper spray. Officer Sicknick died the next day.
You said in our meeting that you understand that health disparities exist. So yes or no, do you, in your view, do the following programs count as health DEI programs? Programs that target Black women to address the maternal mortality crisis?
Senator, there are 7.
Yes or no?
I'm not going to answer that yes or no. If you want an answer, I'm happy to give it to you, but it's not a yes or no.
I just want a yes or no.
It's not susceptible to yes or no answer.
We're going to have to stand in the gap for one another. We can sleep in shifts, but this is going to require everyone. And I cannot have people more outraged about TikTok being deactivated than you are about the rolling back of our civil rights and an existential threat to our democracy and our very planet.
Mr. Kennedy, did you say that COVID-19 was a genetically engineered bioweapon that targets Black and white people but spared Ashkenazi Jews and Chinese people?
I didn't say it was deliberately targeted. I just quoted an NIH-funded and NIH published study.
Did you say that it targets Black and white people but spared Ashkenazi Jews?
I quoted a study, Your Honor.